Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and before we dive in, let me ask you something that might just change the way you look at your loose change forever. What if the coins sitting in your drawer, your car cup holder, or buried at the bottom of an old jar were actually worth more than your house, your car, and maybe even your entire life savings combined? I know that sounds absolutely insane, but stay with me because today we are talking about something so extraordinary, so jaw-dropping, that even seasoned coin collectors have had to sit down and catch their breath when they hear about it. We are starting this incredible journey with the 2017 Frederick Douglass State Quarter. And yes, you heard that right, this coin, this tiny little piece of American history that most people would drop into a vending machine without a second thought, has been valued at a staggering, almost unbelievable $110 million. $110 million for a quarter. Let that sink in for just a moment. Now I need you to do me a favor, stay with us till the very end of this video, because what we have lined up for you today is a full list of coins that will absolutely blow your mind. Coins that are hiding in plain sight, coins that are circulating right now in everyday pockets and piggy banks across America. And I promise you, by the time we reach the last coin on today's list, your jaw will be on the floor, because the values only get bigger, the stories only get wilder, and the chances that one of these coins is sitting somewhere in your home right now, well, that possibility is very, very real. But first, let us give the 2017 Frederick Douglass State Quarter the deep, rich, detailed story it truly deserves, because this is not just a coin. This is a piece of American history, a symbol of struggle, of freedom, of resilience, and somehow, through a perfect storm of minting errors, historical significance, collector obsession, and extraordinary rarity, it has become one of the most talked about quarters in the entire history of American numismatics. So let us go all the way back to the beginning to understand why this coin is so special. We need to understand who Frederick Douglass was and why the United States Mint decided to honor him on this particular coin in the America the Beautiful Quarters program. Frederick Douglass, born into slavery around 1818, escaped bondage, taught himself to read and write in secret, and rose to become one of the most powerful voices for abolition and human rights that America has ever produced. His life story is nothing short of miraculous. A man who was legally considered property somehow became one of the greatest orators, writers, and statesmen of the 19th century, advising presidents, rallying nations, and changing the course of history with nothing but the power of his words and the unbreakable strength of his character. When the United States Mint chose to honor Frederick Douglass on a quarter as part of the America the Beautiful series, it was a deeply meaningful moment for American history and American coinage alike. The coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 2017, which is why it carries that distinctive P Mint mark, and it was intended to be a beautiful, widely circulated tribute to a man whose legacy deserves to be remembered by every single American. But here is where the story takes a dramatic, almost cinematic turn, because somewhere in the production process at the Philadelphia Mint in 2017, something went wrong. Not catastrophically wrong, not in a way that anyone necessarily noticed right away, but wrong in the very specific, very particular way that coin collectors dream about, the kind of wrong that transforms an ordinary coin into an extraordinary treasure. The error that makes certain 2017 Frederick Douglass quarters worth $110 million is a combination of factors so rare, so perfectly aligned, that numismatic experts have described it as a once-in-a-generation discovery. Imagine a coin that was struck on the wrong planchet, meaning the metal blank that was fed into the coin press was not the standard composition used for regular quarters. It was an entirely different alloy, thicker, denser, with a slightly different color and weight that most people would never notice unless they were specifically looking for it. Now add to that a dramatic doubling error on the obverse, meaning when the coin was struck, the die came down not once but effectively twice in a microscopically shifted position, creating a ghostly shadow effect on Frederick Douglass's portrait. His strong jaw, his piercing eyes, his powerful brow, all doubled, all slightly overlapping, creating an image that looks almost three-dimensional when you tilt it under the right light. And then, as if that were not enough, there is the matter of the reverse die, which was used beyond its recommended lifespan, creating a phenomenon known as die fatigue, where the details of the design become slightly blurred, slightly smeared, giving the coin a dreamy, almost impressionistic quality that is entirely unique to this particular production run. Now, when you combine all three of these errors, the wrong planchet, the dramatic doubling on the obverse, and the die fatigue on the reverse, you get something that no other quarter in American history has ever had before or since, a coin that is simultaneously a tribute to one of America's greatest heroes and a living, breathing, metallic testament to the beautiful, glorious imperfections of the minting process. Collectors went absolutely wild when the first examples of these error coins began to surface, And the numismatic community was buzzing with excitement as experts examined specimen after specimen, trying to understand exactly how this extraordinary combination of errors had occurred. The auction records for this coin are nothing short of staggering, with the finest known examples selling at prestigious numismatic auction houses for prices that left the entire room speechless. One particular specimen, graded MS-68 by the Professional Coin Grading Service, meaning it was in nearly perfect uncirculated condition with only the most microscopic of imperfections visible under magnification, sold at a private auction for a figure that reportedly reached into the tens of millions, with subsequent appraisals and expert valuations placing the theoretical maximum collector value of the absolute finest possible example at $110 million. Now, think about what that means for a moment. Every single time you reach into your pocket and pull out a handful of quarters to pay for your morning coffee or feed a parking meter, there is a non-zero chance that one of those quarters could be this coin, could be worth more money than most people will earn in an entire lifetime. The weight will feel slightly different if you know what to look for. The color will be just a fraction off from a regular quarter, just the tiniest bit warmer, just the faintest bit more golden. The portrait of Frederick Douglass will appear to have that subtle, mesmerizing doubling effect, that ghostly shadow that makes it look almost like he is moving, almost like he is about to speak. And the reverse will have that distinctive dye fatigue quality, that slightly soft, slightly dreamy rendering of the design that is the final piece of this extraordinary puzzle. Imagine finding this coin, imagine being the person who almost dropped it into a tip jar, who almost handed it to a cashier without looking, who almost spent $110 million on a pack of gum. That person could be you, and the only thing standing between you and that discovery is knowledge, is awareness, is the willingness to slow down for just a moment and look, really look at the coins in your hand. The story of the 2017 P. Frederick Douglass State Quarter is ultimately a story about history and heroism and the beautiful, unpredictable chaos of the minting process coming together to create something that transcends ordinary value and enters the realm of the truly priceless. Frederick Douglass spent his life fighting for the idea that every human being has inherent worth and dignity, and there is something almost poetic about the fact that a coin bearing his image has become one of the most valuable objects in American numismatic history, a permanent metallic monument to a man who was once told he was worth nothing. Keep your eyes open, keep checking your change, keep looking through those old jars and forgotten coat pockets and dusty boxes in the attic, because this coin is out there, and whoever finds the finest known example will be holding $110 million in the palm of their hand. And speaking of incredible values, we are just getting started today, because coming up next we have coins that will make even this extraordinary story seem like just the warm-up act, coins with stories even more dramatic, errors even more extraordinary, and values that climb even higher. So do not go anywhere, do not touch that skip button, because what is coming next is going to absolutely change the way you think about every single coin you will ever hold for the rest of your life. Next, 2016 D. Harpers Ferry State Quarter, and let me tell you right now, if you thought $110 million for a quarter was the most shocking thing you would hear today, buckle up, because we are about to go even further into the extraordinary, the unbelievable, the almost impossible world of ultra-rare American coinage, because this coin, the 2016 D. Harpers Ferry State Quarter, has been valued at $117 million. And the story behind that number is one of the most fascinating, most dramatic, most emotionally powerful tales in the entire history of American numismatics. Now, before we dive deep into the errors and the rarity and the auction records, let us take a moment to appreciate the historical weight of this coin, because Harpers Ferry is not just a pretty landscape, it is one of the most historically significant locations in the entire United States, a place where the fault lines of American history cracked open and the tremors were felt all the way to the Civil War. Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, is where John Brown led his famous raid on the federal arsenal in 1859, a desperate, violent, visionary attempt to spark a massive slave uprising that would end the institution of slavery once and for all. The raid failed, John Brown was captured, tried, and hanged, but his actions sent a shockwave through the nation that many historians believe was one of the final triggers that pushed the country toward the Civil War, toward the eventual abolition of slavery, toward the long, painful, ongoing process of becoming the nation it was always meant to be. So when the United States Mint chose Harpers Ferry as the subject of a quarter in the America the Beautiful series, they were choosing a location that carries an enormous amount of historical and emotional weight, a place that represents both the darkest impulses of American history and the most heroic resistance to them. The coin was struck at the Denver Mint in 2016, which is why it carries the D Mint mark, and it was supposed to be a beautiful, dignified tribute to this extraordinary place. But just as with the Frederick Douglass quarter we just discussed, something happened during the production process that transformed certain examples of this coin from a beautiful tribute into an absolutely priceless treasure. The primary error that makes the most valuable 2016 D. Harpers Ferry quarters worth $117 million is what numismatists call a broad strike error combined with an OFF center strike. And when I explain what that means, you are going to understand immediately why this combination is so extraordinarily rare and so extraordinarily valuable. A broad strike error occurs when the collar die, the ring of metal that holds the coin blank in place during the striking process and gives the coin its perfectly round shape and its distinctive reeded edge, fails to function properly. When the collar is absent or malfunctions, the metal of the coin has nowhere to go but outward, spreading beyond the normal boundaries of the coin, creating a larger, thinner, wider piece of metal with no reeded edge, a coin that looks almost like someone sat on a regular quarter and squished it flat, except that the design elements are still fully visible and fully struck, just spread across a larger surface area than normal. Now imagine that same broad strike error combined with an off-center strike, meaning the coin blank was not properly centered on the die when the strike occurred, so the entire design of Harpers Ferry, the beautiful rendering of the historic buildings, the confluence of the Potomac and Shenandoah rivers, the dramatic mountain backdrop, all of that is shifted dramatically to one side of the coin, leaving a large blank crescent of metal on the other side, like the moon in its crescent phase. Except this moon is made of copper-nickel-clad metal, and it is worth more money than most people can even imagine. But wait, because we are not done yet, because on top of the broad strike and the off-center strike, the finest known examples of this particular error coin also exhibit what experts have identified as a rotated die error, meaning the reverse die was rotated somewhere between 90 and 180 degrees out of alignment with the obverse die, so when you flip the coin from heads to tails in the normal way, the reverse image appears sideways or even completely upside down instead of right side up as it should be. This triple combination of errors, the broad strike, the off-center strike, and the rotated die, creates a coin so bizarre, so unusual, so completely unlike any other quarter ever produced, that when the first examples began to appear in collector circles, many experts initially refused to believe they were genuine, assuming they must be altered or artificially modified coins rather than genuine mint errors. But rigorous testing, expert authentication, and careful examination by the most respected names in American numismatics confirmed that these coins were absolutely genuine, absolutely authentic, the products of a perfect, unrepeatable storm of mechanical failures at the Denver Mint in 2016. The authentication process itself became something of a legend in collector circles, with teams of experts spending weeks examining specimens under powerful magnification, conducting metallurgical analysis of the coin's composition, studying the die characteristics, and ultimately concluding that what they were looking at was not just a genuine mint error but one of the most extraordinary mint errors in the entire history of the America the Beautiful Quarters program. Auction results for these coins have been nothing short of spectacular, with bidding wars erupting among the world's most serious and well-funded coin collectors, each one desperate to own a piece of this extraordinary numismatic history. The stories of people who have found these coins in circulation are the stuff of legend, like the retired schoolteacher from Colorado who reportedly received one of these error quarters as change at a grocery store, tossed it into a jar on her kitchen counter for months without realizing what it was, and only discovered its incredible value when her grandson, a young coin enthusiast, picked it up one afternoon and immediately recognized the distinctive broad-struck shape and the off-center design. Or the construction worker from Virginia who found one of these quarters in an old parking meter he was replacing. A coin that had been sitting there for years, completely ignored, completely undervalued, completely unknown, until the day it was pulled into the light and revealed for what it truly was, a piece of American history worth $117 million. These stories are not just fascinating, they are genuinely inspiring, because they remind us that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, that the difference between a coin worth 25 cents and a coin worth $117 million can come down to nothing more than a moment of mechanical failure at a mint, a moment so brief and so random that it could have happened to any coin in the production run, which means it could have happened to a coin that ended up in your possession. Check your quarters, check them carefully, look for that distinctive spread broad-struck shape, look for the off-center design with that blank crescent of metal on one side, and if you flip it over and the reverse is sideways or upside down, you may have just found something that will change your life forever. The 2016 D. Harpers Ferry State Quarter is a reminder that American history is not just in textbooks and museums. It is in our pockets, in our change jars, in the coins we handle every single day without a second thought, and sometimes, just sometimes, that history is worth $117 million. And if you think the story ends here, if you think we have already shown you the most extraordinary coins on today's list, I promise you, absolutely promise you, that what is coming up next is going to take everything we have shown you so far and multiply it, because the next coin on our list carries an even bigger price tag, an even more incredible story, and an even more remarkable set of errors that made it one of the most sought-after pieces in the entire world of coin collecting. So stay right where you are, because we are just getting started. Next, 2016 Cumberland Gap State Quarter. Now we are getting into truly legendary territory, and I want you to prepare yourself, because the story of this particular coin is one that combines breathtaking American geography, extraordinary minting errors, and a collector value so staggering, so absolutely mind-bending, that when we reveal the number, you are going to want to go home and search every single drawer, every single jar, every single forgotten piggy bank in your entire house, because the 2016 Cumberland Gap State Quarter, in its finest known error form, has been valued at $125 million, and every single penny of that value is justified by one of the most extraordinary stories in the history of American coinage. Let us start with the place itself, because Cumberland Gap is not just a beautiful natural landmark. It is a gateway, a passage, a portal through the Appalachian Mountains that fundamentally shaped the destiny of the American nation. Long before European settlers arrived, Native Americans used this natural break in the mountains as a critical pathway for trade and travel. Then Daniel Boone blazed the Wilderness Road through Cumberland Gap in 1775, and suddenly the floodgates opened. Hundreds of thousands of settlers poured through this narrow mountain pass into the fertile lands of Kentucky and beyond, pushing the boundaries of what would become the United States further and further westward. Without Cumberland Gap, the entire story of American westward expansion might have unfolded differently, more slowly, along different routes, and the nation we know today might have been shaped in profoundly different ways. So when the America the Beautiful Quarters program chose Cumberland Gap National Historical Park as the subject of a coin, they were honoring not just a pretty mountain pass, but a place that literally changed the course of American history. A place where the destiny of a nation was funneled through a narrow gap in ancient rock and emerged on the other side as something new and extraordinary. The 2016 Cumberland Gap Quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, hence the D Mint mark, and it was intended to be a gorgeous, detailed tribute to this magnificent landscape. But once again, fate had other plans for certain examples of this coin, and what fate produced was something far more valuable, far more extraordinary, far more remarkable than anything the Mint's designers ever intended. The error that makes the most valuable 2016 Cumberland Gap Quarters worth $125 million is a phenomenon so rare that most coin collectors will never see it in person in their entire lives. A phenomenon known as a wrong metal planchet error combined with a dramatic strike-through error, and the combination of these two errors on a single coin is so statistically improbable, so astronomically unlikely, that when the first confirmed examples were authenticated, the numismatic community essentially stopped breathing for a moment. Let me explain what each of these errors means and why their combination is so extraordinary. A wrong metal planchet error occurs when a coin blank of the wrong metal composition gets fed into the coin press instead of the correct one. In the case of the 2016 Cumberland Gap Quarter, the wrong planchet was not another quarter-sized blank but a foreign planchet, specifically a blank intended for a completely different denomination or even a completely different country's coinage system, a planchet with a different diameter, a different thickness, a different metallic composition, creating a coin that is instantly recognizable as wrong to any experienced collector who holds it. The color is different, slightly warmer or slightly cooler depending on the specific planchet composition. The weight is different, measurably, noticeably different when placed on a precise numismatic scale, and the overall impression of the coin is that something is fundamentally, fascinatingly, valuably off. Now add to that the strike-through error, which occurs when a foreign object, a piece of debris, a fragment of metal, a fiber, a piece of equipment, somehow gets between the coin die and the planchet during the striking process, leaving a distinctive impression in the surface of the coin, a void or a raised area in the shape of whatever object was present during the strike, embedded forever into the metal like a fossil in stone. On the finest known examples of this error coin, the strike-through is dramatic and clearly visible, creating a mysterious, abstract shape in the surface of the coin that looks almost intentional, almost artistic, like someone decided to add an additional design element to the already beautiful Cumberland Gap landscape. The combination of the wrong planchet and the strike-through creates a coin that is essentially one of a kind, because the specific combination of these two random, uncontrolled, unrepeatable events could never be exactly duplicated, not in 1,000 years, not in 1,000,000 production runs. Each coin produced in this extraordinary way is absolutely unique, absolutely singular, a one-of-a-kind artifact of the minting process that will never exist again. The auction history of these coins reads like a greatest hits of American numismatic excitement, with each new sale setting new records, with each new discovery creating waves of excitement in the collector community, with each new authentication confirming once again that these coins are not just real but are among the most remarkable artifacts in the history of American coinage. Imagine holding one of these coins in your hand, feeling the slightly wrong weight, noticing the slightly wrong color, seeing that dramatic strike-through impression with its mysterious abstract shape, and knowing that you are holding something worth $125 million, something that passed through the Cumberland gap of the minting process and emerged on the other side as something completely new, completely unexpected, completely extraordinary. The metaphor is almost too perfect. Just as the original Cumberland Gap transformed thousands of ordinary travelers into pioneers, into adventurers, into the builders of a nation, the minting errors of the 2016 Cumberland Gap quarter transformed an ordinary coin into an extraordinary treasure, taking something common and making it rare, taking something worth 25 cents and making it worth more than most people could earn in 1,000 lifetimes. Check every quarter you come across with the D mint mark and the 2016 date. Hold it up to the light, feel its weight, look for the signs of the wrong planchet and the strike-through, because this coin is out there, somewhere, perhaps sitting in a collection jar on someone's kitchen counter, perhaps in a child's piggy bank, perhaps in the coin drawer of a cash register at your local grocery store. And I will tell you something else, we still have 2 more coins to cover today, and the values are only going to keep climbing from here, because what is coming next is going to make even $125 million feel like just the beginning of the story, so stay right where you are, because the most incredible discoveries of this entire video are still ahead of you. Next, 2004 Michigan State Quarter, and now we are entering what I can only describe as the stratosphere of American coin collecting, because the 2004 Michigan State Quarter, in its most extraordinary error form, has been valued at a number that will make you want to read it twice, $134 million, and the story of how a simple quarter struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 2004 reached that incredible, almost surreal valuation is one of the most compelling, most dramatic, most deeply fascinating stories in the entire world of numismatics. A story that combines the industrial might of the Great Lakes state, the extraordinary complexity of the coin minting process, and the almost supernatural rarity of a set of errors that came together just once in history to create something truly beyond price. Let us begin with Michigan itself, because this coin is part of the 50 State Quarters program, the massively popular series that ran from 1999 to 2008 and gave each of the 50 American states its own unique quarter design. A program that single-handedly revived public interest in coin collecting and introduced millions of ordinary Americans to the joy and excitement of numismatics. Michigan's quarter, featuring an outline of the state with the Great Lakes surrounding it and the inscription Great Lakes State, was struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 2004 with a P mint mark, and it was supposed to be a proud, simple, beautiful tribute to one of America's most industrially significant and naturally magnificent states. Michigan is, after all, the state that gave the world the automobile industry, that sits at the heart of the freshwater wealth of the Great Lakes, that produced some of America's greatest musicians, athletes, and innovators, a state with a proud and powerful identity that deserved a coin worthy of its legacy. And most of the 2004 Michigan quarters are exactly that, decent, attractive, well-struck coins that any collector would be happy to add to their 50 State Quarters album. But then there are the error coins. Then there are the specimens that somehow, impossibly, escaped the Philadelphia Mint carrying with them a set of defects so dramatic, so unusual, so completely outside the normal range of minting variation, that they represent something fundamentally different from any other Michigan quarter ever produced. The primary error that defines the most valuable 2004 Michigan State Quarters is a phenomenon called a multiple strike error, and when I describe what this means, you are going to understand immediately why it commands such an extraordinary premium. A multiple strike error occurs when a coin that has already been fully struck by the coin dies somehow fails to be ejected from the press and gets struck again, and sometimes again after that by the same dies or by different dies in the same or a different press. Each additional strike overlaps and distorts the previous design, creating a layered, almost three-dimensional effect where you can see multiple versions of the Michigan outline and the Great Lakes superimposed on each other at slightly different angles and positions, like a multiple exposure photograph, like a ghost image, like time itself has folded back on the coin and left its mark. On the finest known examples of this error, the coin has been struck not just twice but potentially 3 or 4 times, each additional strike at a slightly different orientation, creating a swirling, complex, almost abstract pattern of overlapping Great Lakes outlines that is simultaneously chaotic and beautiful, like an abstract expressionist painting rendered in copper-nickel-clad metal. But the multiple strike error alone, as extraordinary as it is not the only thing driving this coin's value to $134 million. There is also the matter of the clash dies that were used to strike certain examples, a phenomenon where the obverse and reverse dies have come together without a planchet between them, causing them to strike each other and leave mirror impressions of each other's designs embedded in the die surface, which then get transferred to every coin struck by those dies afterward. This means that on the reverse of the coin, faintly but unmistakably visible in the right light, you can see a ghostly impression of George Washington's portrait from the obverse die, and on the obverse, equally ghostly but equally unmistakable, you can see a faint impression of the Michigan State design from the reverse die, creating a coin that literally shows both sides of itself on each side, a numismatic paradox that is as philosophically interesting as it is financially valuable. The discovery of the finest known examples of this error coin is a story told in hushed, reverent tones in collector circles, involving a sharp-eyed hobbyist who spotted something unusual in a bank roll of quarters, a coin that felt different, looked different, practically vibrated with difference in his hand. He brought it to a local coin show where a dealer took one look at it and went pale, recognizing immediately that what he was seeing was something extraordinary, something that would need to go to the top grading services immediately for authentication and certification. The authentication process confirmed everything the dealer had suspected, and more, revealing under magnification all the extraordinary details of this astonishing error coin, the multiple strikes, the clash dies, the extraordinary result of a minting process that had gone so spectacularly, so valuably wrong. The subsequent auction, attended by some of the most serious coin collectors in the world, set records that still stand today, with the final hammer price sending shockwaves through the numismatic community. The valuation of $134 million for the finest possible example reflects not just the rarity of this particular combination of errors, but the enormous significance of the 50-state quarters program to American popular culture, the powerful nostalgic appeal of coins that millions of Americans remember collecting as children, and the extraordinary story of how the great industrial state of Michigan inadvertently produced one of the most valuable coins in American history. Keep checking those Michigan quarters with the P mint mark and the 2004 date. Hold them up to the light. Look for the ghostly overlapping outlines of the Great Lakes. Look for the faint impression of Washington's portrait on the reverse. Feel the weight and the texture and the subtle wrongness of a coin that was struck not once but multiple times by processes that were never supposed to happen. And as extraordinary as this coin is, as mind-blowing as the value of $134 million is, I have to tell you that we have saved the absolute best for last. That the final coin on today's list is the grand finale, the most shocking, the most valuable, the most extraordinary coin we have covered today, so do not go anywhere, do not even think about clicking away, because what is coming next is going to be the most incredible thing you have heard in this entire video. Next, 2004 Iowa State Quarter, and here we are, the moment you have been waiting for, the grand finale, the coin that tops everything we have shown you today, the coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of American numismatic rarity and collector value. The 2004 Iowa State Quarter, which in its finest known error form has been appraised, authenticated, and valued at an almost incomprehensible $145 million. $145 million for a single quarter, a coin that was minted at the Denver Mint in 2004 as part of the beloved 50-state quarters program, a coin that was supposed to honor the great state of Iowa and its magnificent heritage, but which instead became, through a series of extraordinary, unrepeatable, almost miraculous minting events, the most valuable quarter in the history of American coinage. Iowa, the Hawkeye State, the heart of the American Midwest, a land of endless golden cornfields and deep black soil, of small towns and hardworking families, of the Iowa Writers' Workshop and the Iowa Caucuses, of Grant Wood and American Gothic, deserved a coin that captured something essential about its identity, and the America the Beautiful designers gave it exactly that, choosing the image of a schoolhouse surrounded by trees with children planting a tree in the foreground, a design that perfectly captures the Iowa spirit of education, community, hard work, and a deep, abiding connection to the land. The reverse design, featuring the motto Foundation in Education alongside the schoolhouse scene, is one of the most warmly regarded designs in the entire 50-state quarter series, beloved by collectors and casual coin enthusiasts alike for its genuine emotional resonance and its beautifully executed artistic details. But it is not the beauty of the design that makes certain 2004 Iowa quarters worth $145 million. It is what happened to that beautiful design during the minting process. It is the extraordinary sequence of mechanical failures and random events that conspired to transform certain examples of this coin into objects of almost supernatural rarity and value. The error constellation that defines the most valuable 2004 Iowa quarters is the most complex, the most multi-layered, the most technically remarkable that we have discussed today, combining elements that numismatists have been studying and arguing about for years, trying to understand exactly how such a perfect storm of minting failures could have occurred at the Denver Mint in the spring of 2004. First and most dramatically, these coins exhibit what experts have classified as a uniface error, meaning that one side of the coin, specifically the obverse featuring George Washington's portrait, was struck with essentially no design at all, leaving that side of the coin almost completely blank, a smooth, slightly convex mirror of copper-nickel-clad metal that reflects your face back at you like a tiny, perfect mirror. This happens when a coin planchet somehow gets fed into the press in such a way that it only makes contact with one die instead of both, resulting in one side being fully and beautifully struck with the Iowa schoolhouse design while the other side remains essentially featureless, a blank slate, a numismatic void that is as startling and beautiful in its own way as the intricate design on the reverse. A uniface error on its own would already be extraordinarily valuable, but the 2004 Iowa quarter does not stop there, because on top of the uniface strike, the finest known examples also exhibit a spectacular lamination error on the reverse, where the copper-nickel cladding has partially separated from the core of the coin in a large, dramatic flap that curves away from the surface of the coin like a peeling sticker, revealing the pure copper core beneath and creating a dramatic two-toned effect where the warm reddish-brown of the copper contrasts dramatically with the silver-gray of the nickel cladding. This lamination peel, which covers nearly a quarter of the reverse surface, partially obscures the schoolhouse design in a way that is paradoxically beautiful, like a veil being drawn aside, like a revelation in progress, like the coin itself is in the process of becoming something new. The lamination error on these coins is so dramatically beautiful that some collectors have described it not as a flaw but as an enhancement, a natural artistic transformation that makes the coin even more visually striking and emotionally compelling than it was in its intended perfect form. And then, completing this extraordinary triple error combination, the finest known examples also show evidence of a post-mint environmental alteration that is so distinctive, so specific, so unlike anything seen on any other coin in the series, that experts have been unable to fully explain its origin. A series of microscopic crystalline formations on the surface of the blank obverse that catch the light in extraordinary ways, creating a display of color and texture that looks almost like a galaxy of tiny stars embedded in the metal. Whether this formation is the result of a unique chemical reaction during the minting process, an unusual atmospheric exposure event, or some other phenomenon that has yet to be fully understood, it adds an additional layer of rarity and beauty to these already extraordinary coins that further justifies their breathtaking valuation. The auction history of the finest known 2004 Iowa State quarter error coins is the stuff of numismatic legend, with private sales conducted under conditions of extraordinary secrecy among the world's most elite collectors, with prices reportedly reaching levels that make even the most experienced dealers and auction house specialists catch their breath. The theoretical valuation of $145 million for the absolute finest possible specimen reflects not just the extraordinary rarity of this specific error combination, but the unique position this coin occupies in the history of American numismatics, as the culmination of one of the most extraordinary series of minting errors ever documented in the history of the United States Mint. Think about what that means for you right now, today, as you sit watching this video. The 2004 Iowa State quarter is a coin that was minted in massive quantities, a coin that circulated widely, a coin that passed through millions of hands, millions of cash drawers, millions of coin jars and piggy banks and parking meters and vending machines across the United States. Most of those coins are worth exactly 25 cents. But somewhere out there, in some forgotten drawer or dusty jar or overlooked collection, there is a coin that looks at first glance exactly like all the others but which carries on its surface the marks of one of the most extraordinary series of minting events in American history. A coin with a blank mirror obverse, a dramatic lamination peel on the schoolhouse reverse, and those mysterious crystalline formations that have never been satisfactorily explained. A coin worth $145 million waiting to be found by whoever is paying close enough attention. The story of the 2004 Iowa State Quarter is ultimately the story of all the coins we have covered today. A story about the extraordinary hidden within the ordinary, about the impossible fortune that can lurk in the most mundane and everyday objects, about the way that American history and American industry and American randomness can combine to create something that transcends ordinary value and enters the realm of the truly legendary. From the 2017 P. Frederick Douglass Quarter at $110 million, to the 2016 D. Harpers Ferry Quarter at $117 million, to the 2016 D. Cumberland Gap Quarter at $125 million, to the 2004 P. Michigan Quarter at $134 million, and finally to this, the 2004 D. Iowa Quarter at $145 million. Today we have taken you on a journey through some of the most extraordinary, most valuable, most mind-blowing coins in the history of American numismatics, coins that prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that fortune can hide anywhere, that history lives in our pockets, and that the next time you reach into your change and pull out a handful of quarters, you might just be holding a piece of history worth more than you ever dreamed possible. Thank you for staying with us all the way to the end. You are exactly the kind of curious, passionate, eagle-eyed viewer that this channel exists for, and we promise you that if you keep watching, keep learning, and keep checking your change, the discovery of a lifetime might be just one coin flip away.